Now, with two by-elections and the budget looming, Tory MPs are warning that Rishi Sunak has just 6 weeks to improve the party's electoral fortunes before he potentially faces more of them going public with their discontent. We've certainly already seen that this week with Simon Clarke, a former, actually, a Treasury ally and colleague of Rishi Sunak when he was Chancellor, going public saying it was time for him to go. Well, joining me right now is Conservative MP for Sutton and Cheam, Paul Scully. Good morning, Paul.
Morning to you, Julia.
Lots to race through. And I think for a lot of people, those are the least of their worries is, how happy Tory MPs are or aren't with the Prime Minister. I think a lot of people were quite surprised that when Simon Clarke came out and said what he had to say, that, look, we're facing electoral annihilation, we need to change, we need to have a 1-week leadership election, that there was literally nobody coming in behind him. I mean, the tumbleweed just, blew through the whole of Westminster, even though we know behind the scenes he's saying what an awful lot of Tory MPs also think. Is there any chance that there will be another big question mark over the Prime Minister if, as many expect, we see these two by-elections and not getting good results in a few weeks' time?
I don't think so, Julia. I think we're up against an election now. We've got to sit and remain focused. Your previous caller was saying that he doesn't see government as being for him. And if we keep on arguing amongst ourselves, then that's going to be even more deeply felt. So we've got to carry on amongst the 5 pledges that Rishi made last year and actually achieve more than just one of them, get that, but then get onto the vision. Because what we've got to say is what we're going to do for the next 5 years.
You have a vision?
Actually,
the Tories have a vision?
This is what I'm saying. We're not articulating it. We're not articulating it.
What is the vision?
What are we going to do for ordinary people up and down this country,
including
young people? Well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
You don't know what it is. You're a Tory MP and you don't know what it is. I talk to Tory MPs every day and I don't know what it is. The only thing I think is the Tory vision right now is trying to stay in power.
Well, Julia, this is exactly what I'm saying. This is what we do need to be hearing. And because at the moment, what you're finding, that the discussion within the party is all about the so-called 5 families. People are trying to redefine what conservatism actually is and what it isn't. This isn't a thesis. This isn't an essay at university. These are people's lives. What are we doing for jobs? What are we doing about building houses? We do need to build more social houses. We need to build more houses, full stop. It's a supply side problem. We need to put more money back into people's pockets. We trust them to spend their own money through tax cuts, sensible targeted tax cuts, through things like tax thresholds rather than niche taxes. And we've got to boost economic growth that everybody can take part in.
The thing is, this is all motherhood and apple pie, isn't it? Because yes, of course, those are all things, but everyone will say, no offence, but you've been in power since 2010. We've had about 17,000 different prime ministers, but actually, you've not delivered that. And yes, we had the economic crisis. Yes, we had all the battles over Brexit. Yes, we had the lockdowns and all of that. But at the end of the day, people were saying, well, you had your shot.
Yeah, but look, Julia, I'm a backbench MP now. That's my shopping list, basically.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be hearing. Now, you talk about, we've had a shot, but what is the alternative as well? We do have to look at that. There's a lot of things that are being rehashed by the Labour Party. They don't have a plan at all. What I want to hear from our side, from Rishi and the Cabinet, is more detail about our plan and hang that off a proper vision, aspirational vision for people. But there is no plan from the alternative. What I'm hearing from Keir Starmer is, I'm not Rishi Sunak. That's just not good enough, frankly.
OK, but the classic example of this is the announcements today on knife crime, OK? So both the government and the opposition going on knife crime. So the government saying they're going to crack down on this loophole where zombie-style knives are being sold in England and Wales, and they're going to come down harder on that. And Labour Party say, well, £100 million, they've already talked about already. There's not new money. They don't have any money right now to spend, but, involving youth workers. And I think most of the British public just go, oh, for goodness sake. I mean, we've heard all this nonsense. We're still seeing rising knife crime. We've had the latest crime statistics for England and Wales. This is the crime survey for England and Wales, which is considered to be by pretty much everyone the gold standard of evidence. We've seen robbery offences increase by 12%. Offences involving knives increased by 5%. Theft offences increased by 9%, even though overall, apparently, crime's gone down. I don't know how crime's gone down, but we've got all of that. But, we all still see, young people, getting knifed to death on the streets. People feel less safe. People feel like we've lost control of the streets, and Tories are saying, "Oh, this is what we're going to do about it." Labour are saying, "This is what we're going to do." It always involves youth workers and pool tables, as far as I can tell. And no one thinks either of you are going to get to grips with it. And they're quite right, aren't they?
Well, no, I mean, look, what the government announced this morning is the tightening up of the loophole that was
Who left the
came out
loophole?
of the offensive.
Who left the
Sorry?
loophole? I
Well,
remember. I remember people warning about this loophole when the first bit of legislation was put in.
well, it's funny you should say that because I was actually on the bill committee when that went through, and I was just looking back at some of the Hansard about it this morning when I knew you were going to raise it. Didn't see anything about it at all at the time.
It was in
but
the
did
media at the
see, you know,
time.
I've
I
seen some
remember discussing it.
I see some subsequently as it was coming into force, but the bill committee, neither the my party or the Labour Party or the witnesses that came in front of the bill committee raised that. They were talking about corrosive substances, trying to define acid, because acid crime was a big thing at the time, about what you do around the fences and that kind of stuff. But the exact definition, I don't remember. I may have missed that. But what this has done, what that bill did do, because that was primary legislation, that's given us the ability to put forward what's called a statutory instrument. It means it can go through quickly. It's secondary legislation. We don't have to go through the big, wide debate and all that process again. We can have a really short, sharp debate, get rid of that loophole, get it done.
But at the end of the day, when young people are found with knives, no matter how many times, how many different ministers have said, you're going to go to jail, you know, one strike and you're out. We know the vast majority don't go to jail. They don't go to prison. There is no deterrent. They are more scared of the other people, in the neighbourhood who carry knives than they are of a police officer or a magistrate. Simple as that.
Look, I mean, so we increased the fact that the second time you carry a knife up to 2 years, but you were talking about first time.
But they don't. The vast majority don't go to jail.
But if you send everybody to jail first time they pick up a knife, what you're actually doing, you're actually almost professionalising their criminality, because what they learn in prison. So you've got to go back, and I'm not talking about.
No, you're telling people don't carry a knife because there's now a deterrent, because you're going to end up in prison.
So look, this is hugely complicated. If you start with the knife and the policing at the first point, you've got to do more stop and search. Stop and search in London is taking 400 knives a month off the streets of London. We need to do more of that and give the police the powers to do that. You then need to go back before that, and how do you actually stop people getting hold of the knives? That's this loophole that's been tightened.
Okay.
It's making sure that shops aren't stocking knives where they can just be nicked off the streets. I walked down the streets of Sutton and actually gone into shops and talked to the shopkeepers and the managers about how they're displaying their knives. You then got to go before that and actually into schools as well, because there was a fatality in Sutton, outside Sutton Station, just before Christmas. The suspect is now abroad. He's fled abroad, they believe. And seems to be the fact that people feel that they can and should be carrying knives. They've just got to get that.
Well, because there's more knife crime, and so these young people think they need to carry them. Okay, let me bring you on to something else though, because in front of The Guardian today, we're asking our audience about this today, although we're actually getting an awful lot of calls about another subject, which I'll also come on to. Just want to race through this, though, because there's so much to talk about today. British homes for British workers. This apparently is a controversial, we're told by The Guardian, controversial scheme that will basically give UK families higher priority for social housing. Now, there is already under the rules, if you've got two families with exactly the same need, you give priority to the family that's got roots in the community, been there longer, and that will obviously give a benefit to those who are British. But it is nevertheless a matter of fact that, Matt Goodwin pointed this out, 48% of social housing in London has gone to households headed by someone born abroad. Now, they may be a British citizen now, but they were born abroad. Pretty easy to get a British passport these days, actually, if you've lived in the country for a bit. And basically, with 745,000 net migration last year, official government figures, that's the legal migration, and only 9,500 new social homes being built. I mean, we can see where the problem comes, don't we? But again, this has all happened under the Tory watch, Paul.
Well, I think part of the problem is, as I said right at the beginning, we're not building enough houses, full stop.
Yeah.
That's especially acute in London, where the Mayor of London he keeps talking about housing starts. You can't live in a start. You have to live in a completed house. It's not even a building site, actually. A start, the way he defines a start is, don't have to put a spade in the ground to have a housing start.
Unless someone can actually move into that house tomorrow, it ain't housing that's available. Okay. But we don't have
Totally agree
enough.
with you.
We're not building.
No, we don't.
Even in private homes, we only built 200,000 last year. We had 745,000 more people come to live in the country, and we only built 200,000 homes. We haven't got enough for the people who are already here. I mean,
So,
you don't have to have a maths PhD to work this stuff out. So why does
no,
the
but I'll
government
tell
get
you
it
what,
so
Julia,
wrong?
I'll give you a really good example. When I was Minister for London, I went down to Thamesmead and looked at what they were doing there. They want to build 30,000 houses over the next 30 years. 30 years. And Thamesmead and Beckton, the other side of the river. Why is that? Because they want to, well, it's partly because they want to bring the DLR down there, and that takes some time. The Docklands Light Railway, that does take time. But partly is because they're only releasing so many houses so it doesn't spoil their market value. That's fine for a private contractor. It's absolutely no good for a government or the Mayor of London, who actually needs to be building these houses and housing people right here and right now. So that's why we've got to have more intervention. I don't mean by the Mayor.
I think less intervention. I think allowing more private builders into, and not having some of the barriers to stop them from doing. Let me ask you finally, because time is against us, Paul. Just want to ask you finally about the Prime Minister having to rule out conscription yesterday after the head of the army said that we need to have effectively a citizens' army because we need to be preparing for war. We don't have enough in our military, and we need to have more people available to fight as and when we need them. Do you agree?
I don't think we should be, talking about conscription. We should be talking about how the military is an attractive career option. So we're actually widening our recruitment there as well. It worried me when your previous caller was saying he'd only fight when, in his own street. And I think the content that you had on was absolutely correct. When we've got to be actually pushing this out and actually making sure we're defending our country from afar, because otherwise, whatever you think about politicians, whatever you think about government, if you're fighting on your own street, the alternative that's coming in is going to be a whole lot worse.
Really good to talk to you. Thank you. Paul Scully, their former Minister for London, Tory MP.